Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Synced Movies and Television with Matty and Stephen. I am Stephen. Over here we have
Matty.
Hell yeah. And today we're bringing you a review of the newest Cronenberg film called Crimes of the Future. If you're a Cronenberg fan, then you know what we're about to get into. This movie is directed by David Cronenberg, written by David Cronenberg, starring Viggo Mortensen, Leah Seydoux, Kristen Stewart, Scott Speedman, Leahy Kornowski, Don McKellar, Nadia Litz, Tanya Beatty, quite a few people I don't know, Welkit Bungwe, and, you know, kind of other people who aren't as famous as those people I just mentioned on that list. But yeah, we're bringing to you Crimes of the Future. We're going to start here with some general thoughts on Crimes of the Future. I guess I'll just kick it off. Going into this movie, I didn't really know what to expect other than that it was going to be a Cronenberg movie. When I saw the trailer, I knew it was going to be a really weird Cronenberg movie. I didn't realize that it was going to make me feel the way that I did. I thought it might make me feel a certain way, for sure. But it actually was very thought-provoking, very interesting. I'm riding high on these old man Viggo performances. They're quite good. And you know, it had a lot to say that I think, you know, kind of hits you like a curveball just because a lot of it is just so weird. You know, if you're a seasoned Cronenberg watcher like Matty and myself, to a certain degree, I haven't seen all of them, but if you're a seasoned Cronenberg, if you know Cronenberg, then you know it's going to get quite weird and maybe even really off-putting. Like, this is not a movie that you're going to share with your mom, probably, very likely to do so. But by the end of it, you know, it's hard to determine where it was headed in the beginning and what all it had to say and where all this weird body horror stuff was going to go. But I found myself really enjoying the subject matter, really enjoying the message, and really finding it to be a pretty cool sci-fi movie. If you're interested in seeing it, you definitely should. If you really like Cronenberg, you probably have already seen it. If you're just getting started with Cronenberg, this is, I think, one of the really good ones. What do you think, Matty? General thoughts?
I mean, exactly what you said. It's Cronenberg. I love him. I like watching him. I'm glad he got back to sci-fi and kind of body horror stuff. I mean, it's what he's known for. I understand he needed to go off and make like History of Violence and Eastern Promises. I didn't see like A Dangerous Method or Cosmopolis or Maps of the Stars. Didn't really hear anything that astounding about. Maybe A Dangerous Method was good. I don't know, but you know, for me, Cronenberg he's who I go to for my body horror, and I'm glad it's a return to form. I will say, if you can watch The Fly, you can get through Crimes of the Future.
Sure.
I feel like it's the Fly is still pretty bad for me, as in grossness factor and like weird body stuff. I mean, there's some weird stuff. It's not weird. Crimes of the Future, if I'm being honest, could have been a little worse. I definitely wanted it to make me a little uncomfortable. But I, like Stefan said, I do think that the messages that are presented in this movie are great, and I think if there would have been too much grotesque stuff, it probably would have turned a lot of people away from watching this film. So I think it's really well balanced with enough weirdness that, you know, the Cronenberg heads out there will love it, because it's definitely going to have some weird stuff. But if you want to watch a cool, interesting, thought-provoking sci-fi movie by Cronenberg, you also get that as well.
So outside of the general thoughts section, we're going to get into more spoilery stuff. I think we're both at this point telling you to definitely watch it. We both really enjoyed it. We watched it in a watch party with our Xboxes, which is quite fun. Do that with your friends if you're far away. It's not too bad, you know. So next we'll get into the execution and storytelling of this film. You know, it's kind of a slow burn, I would say. You don't really know where it's headed up until like really the last few scenes, or how it's going to kind of come around on itself. You almost feel like, man, he's leaving some threads untied here. Where's this going to go? What's going to happen here? But the way it wraps up, I think about it a lot. I think it really is like a master playing a symphony kind of thing. He kind of, you know, if you're willing to stick with it, it is a bit of a slow burn. It's a bit of a heavy chew, if you will. That's a funny term.
You're not wrong, though.
Yeah, but you know, and it's got like, it's very psychological. It's got these really heavy, weighty themes and really insane scenery or scenes. I was saying to Maddie too, I felt like, you know, I feel like when you sign up to a Cronenberg movie, you kind of got to leave whatever your expectations are at the door and just allow Cronenberg to be this like puppet master. Because there was one scene in particular between Kristen Stewart and Viggo Mortensen. By the end of it, it was so intense. It was so tension filled between these two characters, and you're getting to know Kristen Stewart's character just a little bit more. And by the end of the scene, I remember just being, when there's a pause, I was like, this is fucking nuts, man. Like, just what he has his actors doing, the psychological spaces he has them performing in is just like masterful, but you know, intense. He knows the movie he's trying to make. He knows the story he's telling, and he plays the audience as much of as a puppet as he does with his actors. And you're along for the ride, and sometimes it's very uncomfortable. Me and Matty, I think we like that. The more uncomfortable, the better, because you're just like, oh, that's good. That's real good.
I do like to push myself within the realm of film. I mean, it, like you said, hard chew, slow burn, whatever phrase we're turning here at the at Saint. I'm down for it. Is a little bit of a slow burn. I do think there is enough interesting imagery to keep you intrigued about like what's happening. I mean, he's a master storyteller. I mean, you don't say the name David Cronenberg within certain circles, and people go, "Who's that?" You know, like maybe if you're with like some people you don't really know that well, they might not know, but
Normies.
they're not. Yeah, they're not your friends, so you know, stop talking to them. Yeah, I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I definitely thought I was getting into, like I said at the beginning in general thoughts, I definitely thought it was going to be like it was going to be a gross out. Like, here's his return to form. Like, get ready, like Rabid and Shivers and stuff like that. Just get into weird sexual stuff. I was like, dude, I don't know if I'm ready. I'm getting older now. Can I even handle a Cronenberg movie? Who am I anymore? You know, a lot of questions were going into watching this, and I'm glad we did the watch party because I had my buddy there, because I feel like we could talk about it. You know, if he heard me gag, he'd be like, "Oh, it's a great reaction," something like that. It's exactly what I knew I was getting into with a Cronenberg film. Like, I knew it was going to be thought-provoking. I knew it'd be a little bit of a mystery to get us from point A to, you know, point B, which B being the ending. And there'd be all this stuff in between that you'd be like, well, what's that? Why is this happening? Who's this? Like, what's he trying to say here?
Yeah.
And to me, he wraps it all up very nicely in a nice package for you. And absolutely. You know, this is the kind of movie I love to watch, man. I love for something to wrap me up in a futuristic society, but also comment on the society I'm living in, and just give me some ideas that I necessarily hadn't really thought of before till I watched this movie. Right. And honestly, that's what I want from films. I want to walk out and be like, yeah, I need to watch that again. I definitely have missed some stuff, and I will watch Crimes of the Future again.
I think I might too. Yeah, you can tell it was a smaller budget. Probably his last few movies have been smaller budgets, but he really evoked the atmosphere of this future that everybody's in. So for those of you who don't know, basic premise is that humans have ceased to feel pain, infections are gone, so sex has kind of evolved into surgery. So people are having intimate, very deep, intimate moments with one another by cutting each other and peeling skin and getting into the guts and stuff. So Viggo Mortensen's character, he plays an artist, and the art world has blown up with these like sexual surgeries, and it's turned into like a performance art boom. And Viggo Mortensen's character is actually growing new organs, and so it's become so prevalent that people are developing new organs, that a new institution has been instituted. And you know, they're trying to catalog these new organs and trying to figure out what their use is for in our bodies. The entire message near the end is, I don't really want to give away the whole message because it's a good payoff, but basically the organs do have a use, and it's very important thematically to the world we live in and kind of the future that they have grown into, a hellish future. You know, like none of the characters you can trust. Yeah, I mean, execution and storytelling. Is there anything else you wanted to add for that section there?
No, I mean, it's one of those things that I want to talk about things, but I want people to see it, and I don't want them to watch. It's like I don't want them to listen to this or watch this, you know, which is the exact opposite of why like, we want people to watch this, but it's just funny because some movies I want you to go in as fresh as possible too.
Yeah. From here, we'll go ahead and jump into like characters and performance. There were a lot of really good characters in this movie that you know, they're kind of slimy, they're kind of greasy, but the future that you end up here is kind of like most people are in really desperate situations and doing fairly depraved acts that have become normalized because of this whole sexual surgery thing. You know, I really loved, of course, Viggo Mortensen's character. I like that we've seen him in a lot of like strong male roles over the years, but this one he's like
Yeah.
really frail. He's often kind of sick and just not, you know, these organs that are growing in his body are wreaking, he believes, wreaking havoc on his body and actually trying to kill him. So he's very frail. He has this really interesting costume where it's like a hood and like a ninja
Ninja.
mask over the whole thing. So he really transforms himself in this film to be very unique. Saul Tenser was the name of the artist
Yeah.
that he played, and he really embodied this whole new character for this movie, and just really I felt like it was pretty transformative. And the guy, he's just incredible to watch on screen. Leah Seydoux played his lover slash assistant who helped with these surgeries. Also, we'll talk more about this in the gags, but they used these contraptions, these machines, different kind of biomechanical machines that either was attempting to help and nourish or get Saul Tensor to stay asleep or to feed him. But then there's also these other ones that were like more surgical. And Leah Seydoux, if you ever seen Existence, which is another good David Cronenberg, there's a lot of this really fleshy technology that's incorporated, and he doesn't pull out any stops for that kind of thing in this movie, which is really good. She was great. I was really impressed by Scott Speedman in the film. He's kind of just like, you know, real, you know, not to knock him, but maybe like a real middle of the road actor. Hasn't been in a lot of things in a long while, but I thought he was used to great effect in this film and really turned quite an impressive performance. Kristen Stewart is another one. I think right now she's kind of like her male counterpart from the Twilight series, Robert Pattinson, and picking some really nice roles, some interesting roles, dark, very strange, you know, provocative type of roles. I think she's quite good, actually. She's really good in this movie. Who else do we have? The Don McKellar, who played the other guy as part of this organ cataloging thing. He was really good. I could almost see somebody like oh my god, I'm blanking on Oscar Isaac. I could see Oscar Isaac having played this role, but it was such a small role. But this guy, he did a really good job of showing this like desperation, and he goes from being very skeptical of this like weird art world into being like obsessed about it near the end. But actually, he's not quite as obsessed as Kristen Stewart's character, and kind of finds his way out near the end of the movie, almost maybe saving himself from a lot of trouble. All the characters I thought were utilized very well, and even the like Fed guy, the police guy who so we find out that Saul Tenser is actually an informant for this government agency, and kind of keeping tabs on this art world and some of this stuff. And before I kick it over to you, there was one actress, you see her right at the beginning. She plays the mother who kills her child at the beginning. Leah Kornowski. She played a character named Duna. She has one really good scene with Viggo Mortensen, and I just found her to be astounding. And not just because she's a beautiful woman or anything like that, but just she's a talent to look out for, seriously. She was really good in that scene. So what do you think about characters and performance throughout the film?
I thought everyone was awesome. I think, like you said, like frail old man Viggo is great because we've seen it. You know, I mean, I think when everyone thinks Viggo, they think, you know, Lord of the Rings, like he's, you know, Return of the King, like like or even History of Violence. He's like such a badass, and I thought I honestly, I think after we watched this, and then I've recently we both watched 13 Lives. It's nice to have Viggo back. It was just it's nice to see him on the screen again. I think he is a really good actor, and I haven't seen all his movies and stuff. I hear Captain Fantastic is a great movie, and he's good in it, stuff like that. But it was nice to see him back and in a Cronenberg movie again. I think him and Cronenberg just get each other, and I, you know, knowing a little bit about Viggo in his normal life, I understand why he's probably attracted to this project, because he is like an artist outside of this, and you know, acting is a part of his art and other arts that he does. So I get, like, you know, there is a lot of he's just it's nice to see him again. I'm glad he's doing movies again. I'm glad he just didn't like, you know, is like, I'm retired, I'm never doing a movie again. I'm glad that Viggo's still out there making some good flicks. Leah Seydoux, or however you say her name, she's also
So
great. I
she's
liked.
great.
I mean, it's funny because like the only thing that comes to mind when I think of her is Death Stranding, which I loved her in.
Oh right, yeah.
But I like watching her and stuff. I think she's stunning and just commands the screen with her looks. And
Yeah,
anything she's about to say, or if she just walks across the screen, you just stop and watch it.
sure, yeah.
Kristen Stewart, I also agree. I think she's doing great, like real fun movies. I didn't see the newest Charlie's Angels that she's in. I didn't really hear anything about it. I'd watch it because she just seems to
Yeah,
be picking
same.
like fun flicks to do. I thought Underwater is a very
Gotta watch it.
it was like a dump movie in January or February a couple of
Mm-hmm.
years ago. Dude, I don't know. I don't know why people didn't love this movie or why it got dumped, but it's a
Gotta
great
watch it.
underwater horror story.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I thought she was great. I thought she was super creepy. I didn't trust her, and that's another thing. I didn't trust anyone in this movie except for maybe Viggo's character. But then you find out that he's an undercover detective, so you shouldn't have been trusting him to begin with. It's just
Yeah,
everyone is out to like not to get each other, but there's all these
yeah,
other motivations that they have, and it's all about
yeah,
themselves. And you know, I think it's just our culture right now is just like we just try to make ourselves happy, and if that's
yeah,
piggybacking off of something to get something else, like it's very what he's trying to say in this movie is a lot of stuff, and I don't want to give a lot of away, but it's very much what our culture is going through and art. Um,
yeah,
and I thought it was a very cool movie. The guy that plays the Kristen Stewart's like little counterpart, I thought he was great. To me, it
yeah,
was almost like Cronenberg wanted to put himself in the movie to play this
yeah.
character. It seemed
It
very
did.
Cronenberg,
That's a
or
good
like
point.
I guess maybe like the weird side of Cronenberg that he wanted to get out in a character. I feel like that was that character. I just gave me Cronenberg vibes for whatever
That's
reason, like the
interesting.
whole
Yeah.
time. Scott Speedman, say what you will about the Underworld movies. I know they're not great, but I like those first two. And I always thought Scott Speedman was a pretty decent actor, and I thought he should have gotten a little more love. I think with the right director, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously in this movie with the right director, he is good.
Hell yeah.
There's a scene with him and Vigo. I think he stands toe to toe with Vigo in that scene. It's not a very long scene, but he's great. I think what his character is trying to do, and what they have done in this movie is my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
Just I don't know if we
Start a
want to get into
revolution, we'll say.
yeah,
He's part
and
of a revolution.
I just think it's such a cool idea because it is something that I think that we as a society are facing with waste and our waste, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a very interesting idea that Cronenberg has presented for to think about in a movie. Like,
Yeah.
would you have this done to you, kind of thing? And I don't know if I would,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I thought he was great. I'd say the weakest performance I thought was the detective who kind of like touches base with Vigo's character.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like a language barrier because he's definitely not a U.S. citizen. He
It's
did have nice screen
definitely.
presence though, but I just didn't really buy him being this higher up to Vigo. But I
Yeah.
think that's because Vigo is such a high standing caliber of actor that you have to be like really good to be next to him.
Just to add to that real quick, with that guy's performance, I felt like, he didn't seem like a practiced or studied actor so much. I don't know what his
Yeah.
background is much, but it almost seemed like the performance maybe Cronenberg picked him specifically because of the lack of experience or something to get
Hmm.
a really, because it's an odd performance,
Yeah.
bordering on your initial idea is that it's like not a good performance, but it's really more of an odd performance. But yeah, that one
Yeah.
stuck out to me.
But it, like you were saying about the lady, I totally forgot her name, who plays the mother of the child who gets murdered at the beginning of the movie. Um,
Oh
I
yeah.
that scene that she has with Vigo is just like, where did she come from, and how can she talk to Vigo like this? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
the way she just
Right.
presents herself and is just commands the screen. It's almost like Vigo like shrinks in this scene where he's
Sure.
like the standout character, and I thought it was, I kind of felt the same way you did after it was over. I was like, why is she not in more shit? Like, where'd she come from?
Yeah.
Who is this? Give her a tent pole something or other. I don't know what, she's great. But yeah, I mean, for me, that was probably yeah, that was performances are great. There's only one
Yeah.
weak link, and maybe Cronenberg had a reason for it being a weak link, and I'm just not
Seemed
privy because I'm not
interesting and
smart as
odd.
Cronenberg.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So next up, we'll talk about the special effects, the stunts, the gags, the kills, the practical effects, what have you,
Yeah,
set pieces and that kind of thing. It was very minimal in this movie. You could tell it was a
yeah,
small budget, but all the background and set pieces were utilized to such great effect to make you believe this world. And Yeah, it felt real. But one thing I wanted to talk about was the machines that are in this. Very Cronenberg. The one in particular is like it's like a chair that looks like it's made of bones. It's like this biomechanical thing
Yeah.
that. So a lot of the characters are having trouble eating, or probably predominantly most of the characters have trouble getting normal food down, and they eat all this weird slop throughout the film. And this machine, you sit in it, and it kind of moves your body around to help you work the food down. Such a
Yeah.
gnarly idea. And then watching this machine, at first you're just like, this is, where is he going? What is this? But then by the
Yeah.
time you get near to the end of it, you're just so enthralled by the whole notion of them, like, and it's like, come down to Best Buy and buy this fucking new chair thing, and then there's the new model this year. And same to be said with like the surgery machines that were really cool, like pods. I
Hmm.
felt like the bed thing maybe needed a little bit more explanation, or maybe I missed something, but it seemed to
Yeah.
be like a stimulating bed that he laid in that was just kind of like a big nut
Well,
sack, honestly.
yeah.
Big
So it's
testicle.
used. It's to help him sleep because of growing these new organs. He has a lot of pain, so it's supposed to keep pain so he can sleep at night.
Oh,
So
that's
that's like
right.
the
He
things
was,
attached to his
yeah.
hands are like, I guess, send some sort of
Hmm.
pain medication to him is what I
Yeah.
understood when they were
Yeah.
kind of when they have to come fix it because I guess the film when you meet Vigo he is like not having a good night's rest basically
Yeah.
and when he wakes up so
Yeah, they also kind of point out that some of the characters can still feel some pain here and there, and it's actually kind of a sought after sensation to be able to feel some pain. And I think that was addressed kind of right early on with that bed thing, which was super
yeah.
gnarly.
Oh yeah, I think Vigo's character can also like grow new organs but also feels pain still a little bit.
Hmm.
That's why he needs this bed.
It's crazy. But for the budget that they had and what they were able to utilize, most of the stuff in this is practical. I think probably the only CG stuff is maybe some of the incisions that we see and some of
Yeah,
the blood stuff.
and
But
some of the arm like when they're cutting.
so there was a bit of CG, and it's pretty like glaringly CG and stuff, and you could tell like
No budget.
very low
Yeah.
budget for this one, but everything used to such good effect.
I think the weakest part of the movie, honestly, is probably the CG bits. But I mean, you have to understand that like Hollywood doesn't want to make a Cronenberg movie anymore. It's not the 80s
Right,
and 90s, which is a sad state of affairs because
right,
after watching this, is like, well, I wish they would have thrown it to that instead of some other stuff that I've seen recently, you know.
right.
But one of my biggest beefs with the movie is I wish it was bigger. I wish it had like a Blade Runner feel or something like that because you are
Yeah,
in this futuristic society, and I think like a bigger scope would have been great. But you know, it's an indie film basically, and like I said, it's kind of sad to see Cronenberg like go back to that. I feel like at this point he should
mm-hmm.
be able to make any movie he wants, and
Absolutely.
studios should just throw money at him. You know,
Yeah,
I thought all the practical stuff worked really well. I definitely there is one scene where he has a zipper on his belly that he gets put in that gets a little
right.
weird, and they do a classic like. I mean, for me, my imagination is way worse than anything that Cronenberg could show me because you kind of get on the something can turn funny, right? Or not realistic enough and it just looks weird. So why
Right.
not pan away from it or pan up and look at like Saltins or Vigo's face? You know, like that's a better that's called directing, you know? It's like you could show it, but
Hell
is it
yeah.
going to come off as funny? Did they shoot it and it didn't look good? So there is some practical stuff in it. Cronenberg hasn't gone all CG. Like you said, all the beds and like the
Yeah,
autopsy machine is great. They have to reconfigure it for this autopsy, which are considered, I think, illegal, and you can't do them in the underground scene. So they're
right.
doing this illegally, and like Saltins are being an undercover agent is like letting it happen because it's just his motivations are like we need to progress as a people and I don't
Yeah,
you know he's kind of he has conflicting ideas going on because of Scott Speedman's thing at this point and
right.
they need to do this autopsy for a reason. I thought the little boy practical effects dummy was pretty good looking. I mean, you could
Right.
tell, but it, you know, you
Yeah.
can't have a kid on screen and be like, yeah, we're going to cut you up. Just lay here, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah, it was really
but
good.
yeah, I thought all of it was believable. I didn't think at any point that I was like, nothing took me out of it. You know, I mean, the CG isn't great, but I think what we have here is a master storyteller, even with the, you know, subpar CG can still tell a great story and keep you invested. So,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. With all that, we'll head into our closing remarks on the film. I think overall, such a good movie. By the end of it, you know, even with all the like really uncomfortable and off-putting moments, which I love, like I said, but with all that kind of stuff and where he's steering you, it could have fallen apart at a certain point. You're like, where's this going and how is he going to wrap this up? But for me, the very end moment is just like one of those great movies where the payoff is so good and you've done the work with him to get there. And it just has such a beautiful moment right at the end to bring everything all around and back into perspective. And this movie honestly stuck with me. And I've been thinking about many different parts of it and how it's haunted me, how beautiful it was, the performances involved, the overall concept, and how Cronenberg can take, you know, any other like sci-fi director might approach this subject matter totally differently. But Cronenberg found a way to have his darling body horror aesthetic and sensibility in order to tell like a really important, I'd say, and really emotionally charged and impassioned film. It's like it really works on so many levels. Everybody in it's great. I think it's absolutely worth a watch.
I loved it. I think everyone should watch it. I haven't seen a movie address this way, because only Cronenberg can address it this way, you know.
Right.
The thing I love is that I think there is the right amount of body horror and grossness factor in this movie to satisfy Cronenberg fans and then to also make a really good movie. So watch it.
I totally agree. Thank you once again for joining us for our review and talking movies with us. Please hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you thought of Crimes of the Future, if you hated it, if you love it, if you think Cronenberg's just too disgusting to enjoy. Let us know how you feel. Also, if you want to engage with us, right here is our Instagram handle. Go to @seentmoviestv on Instagram. Engage with us there. Leave some comments. Generally, I leave the promotional stuff up there and then bring you back over to YouTube. So thanks again for watching. That is Crimes of the Future.
Saint!
Bye.